He's sitting in the interrogation room, and something is wrong. His head jerks violently to the left, his eyes roll back. Then, in a voice that sounds nothing like his own, he speaks. "I am the demon. I made him kill those kids. He didn't want to do it. I made him." The detective sits perfectly still. Doesn't react, doesn't even blink, because he's seen this performance before. This is Nikolas Cruz, the Parkland school shooter who murdered 17 students and staff members in one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. And right now, in this interrogation room just hours after the massacre, he's trying to convince everyone that he's criminally insane. That voice in his head commanded the killing. That he's not responsible for what happened. But there's a specific moment, one tiny slip, where his entire performance collapses, where the demon voice disappears and the real Nikolas Cruz accidentally reveals himself. Stay with me, because what you're about to see will change how you watch every interrogation, every insanity claim, and every defendant who says, "I couldn't control myself." Before we break down one of the most analyzed interrogations in criminal psychology, I need you to do something. If you're fascinated by interrogation analysis, criminal psychology, and how detectives expose deception, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next breakdown. Give this video a like and share it with someone who loves true crime psychology. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love knowing how far these psychological breakdowns reach around the world. Now, let's analyze what happened in that interrogation room. Before we analyze the interrogation, we need to understand who Nikolas Cruz is and what happened on February 14th, 2018, because the context makes his performance even more revealing. Nikolas Cruz was 19 years old when he walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, carrying an AR-15 rifle. He was a former student who had been expelled for disciplinary problems. Teachers had flagged him as a potential threat. Students knew he was dangerous. Some even joked darkly that if anyone was going to shoot up the school, it would be Nikolas Cruz. On Valentine's Day 2018, he made those fears a reality. Cruz arrived at the school at 2:19 p.m. in an Uber. He was carrying a black duffel bag and a backpack. Inside was the AR-15 rifle he'd legally purchased a year earlier, along with multiple magazines of ammunition. He entered Building 12, pulled the fire alarm to get students into the hallways, and began shooting. What followed was 6 minutes of methodical, calculated violence. Cruz moved through 3 floors, firing into classrooms, shooting students in hallways, targeting anyone he saw. He wasn't frantic. He wasn't panicking. Survivors described him as calm, purposeful, systematic. When his rifle jammed, he didn't flee. He dropped it and walked away, blending in with fleeing students. He left the building, walked to a Walmart, bought a drink at the Subway inside, then went to McDonald's. He sat there calmly eating for a while before walking down the street, where he was arrested by police at 3:41 p.m., about an hour after the shooting ended. 17 people were dead, 14 students and 3 staff members. 17 more were injured. It was one of the deadliest school shootings in American history. And here is what is crucial for understanding the interrogation. Cruz's behavior after the shooting showed 0 signs of psychosis, dissociation, or loss of control. He knew exactly where he was going. He made rational decisions, dropping the rifle to avoid being caught with it, blending in with students, going to public places with cameras where he'd look like just another person. This is not the behavior of someone experiencing a psychotic break. But when police brought him in for questioning, suddenly the demon voice appeared. Let's look at what happened in that room. The interrogation began in the early evening of February 14th, just hours after the shooting. Detective John Corcio sat across from Cruz, who was wearing a hospital gown. He'd been taken for medical evaluation after his arrest. From the start, Cruz's behavior was unusual, but not in the way you might expect from someone genuinely experiencing psychosis. Let's break down the specific tells that exposed his performance. Real psychosis is messy, confusing, and distressing for the person experiencing it. Fake psychosis is theatrical and performed for an audience. Watch how Cruz introduces his demon. He doesn't seem disturbed by it. He doesn't appear to be struggling with an internal voice. Instead, he announces it like an actor taking the stage. The demon is talking to me. Then he switches to the demon voice, gravelly, deeper, completely different from his normal speaking voice. This is a performance with clear character transitions. Real auditory hallucinations don't work like this. people experiencing genuine command hallucinations typically show distress, confusion, or fear about the voices. They might pause mid-sentence, respond to the voice internally, or ask if others can hear it too. They don't switch between themselves and the demon like they're performing a two-person play. Dr. Charles Scott, a forensic psychiatrist who has evaluated thousands of defendants claiming insanity, explains that genuine psychotic episodes are inherently disorganized. The person's thought patterns are fractured. Their speech is tangential. They struggle to maintain a coherent narrative. Cruz's demon voice, on the other hand, is perfectly organized. The demon speaks in complete sentences. It has a consistent personality. It explains its motivations clearly. This is scriptwriting, not psychosis. Here's the biggest red flag. Cruz showed zero signs of psychosis during the actual shooting. Go back to the timeline. He took an Uber to the school, had a normal conversation with the driver. He walked through the building, shooting people methodically, strategically, efficiently. He reloaded his weapon multiple times, cleared gems, moved between floors, targeting areas with the most people. This requires executive function, planning, spatial awareness, and impulse control. Then, after the shooting, he calmly blended in with fleeing students. Went to Walmart, ordered food at Subway, sat at McDonald's eating. These are all purposeful, goal-directed behaviors that require intact cognitive function. The demon voice only appeared after he was arrested, after he was in custody, after he knew he was facing either the death penalty or life in prison, after he understood that an insanity defense might be his only way out. This is not how genuine mental illness works. Real psychotic breaks are pervasive. They affect behavior consistently across all contexts. They don't conveniently appear only when it's legally advantageous. Forensic psychologist Dr. Paul Maciucci, who has testified in hundreds of insanity defense cases, notes that genuine psychosis significant enough to drive someone to mass murder would show up everywhere in that person's behavior before, during, and after the crime. It wouldn't have an on-off switch that only activates during police interrogations. This is one of the most revealing tells. Watch Cruz's demon voice across multiple interrogations. It gets better, more refined, more dramatic. The head twitches become more pronounced. The voice gets more distinct. The performance becomes more elaborate. Real mental illness doesn't improve with practice. Genuine psychotic symptoms are either consistent or they deteriorate under stress. They don't refine themselves like a rehearsed act. This is Cruz workshopping his performance, testing what gets reactions, amplifying what seems to work. This is theater direction, not pathology. Detective Corcio uses a devastatingly effective technique. He completely ignores the performance. He doesn't react to the demon voice, doesn't ask about it, doesn't validate it. He just keeps asking calm, factual questions in a matter-of-fact tone, as if Cruz is speaking normally. And watch what happens. Cruz gets frustrated. The performance isn't working. The detective isn't impressed or disturbed or confused. So Cruz escalates. The twitches get bigger. The voice gets more extreme. The behavior becomes more dramatic. He needs the detective to believe it. When he doesn't get that validation, he tries harder. This is a critical tell. People genuinely experiencing psychosis don't escalate their symptoms for effect. They're trapped in their experience whether you pay attention or not. Their symptoms continue regardless of audience response. But Cruz needs the attention. He needs the belief. When he doesn't get it, he amplifies the performance. This reveals that the behavior is under his conscious control. He's choosing how dramatic to be based on whether it's working. Now we come to the moment that destroys Cruz's entire act. About 40 minutes into the interrogation, Detective Corcio shifts tactics. He asks Cruz a detailed factual question about the logistics of the shooting, specifically how he carried the rifle into the building without being noticed, where he positioned himself, how he knew when to pull the fire alarm. And Cruz answers clearly, accurately, with detailed memory and logical sequencing. He describes his planning, his timing, his thought process. No demon voice, no twitching, no confusion. No, the demon made me do it. He slips out of character because the question engaged his actual memory of the crime, and for just a moment, he forgets to pretend to be insane. He's thinking about what he did, recalling the sequence of events, and his brain defaults to normal speech patterns. Then he catches himself, realizes he's been answering coherently. And suddenly the demon voice comes back, but now it's too late. He's already revealed that he can discuss the crime clearly when he's not performing. Real psychosis doesn't have an off switch. You couldn't temporarily drop your symptoms to answer a factual question and then pick them back up when you remember you presupposed to be crazy. But performance does. This is the moment. Forensic psychologists knew for certain Nikolas Cruz was malingering. After the interrogation, Cruz underwent extensive forensic psychiatric evaluation. Multiple psychologists and psychiatrists examined him using standardized tests designed specifically to detect malingering, faking mental illness. Let's talk about how they definitively proved Cruz was performing. Cruz was given the MMPI to Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, which includes validity scales that detect when someone is exaggerating symptoms. These scales ask subtle questions that genuine mentally ill patients answer differently than people pretending to be mentally ill. For example, the test might ask, "Do you sometimes hear voices?" A malingerer will answer yes, thinking it makes them seem crazy. But genuine schizophrenics in remission, or people who don't trust the evaluator, often answer no. Cruz failed these validity scales spectacularly. He endorsed nearly every symptom at maximum severity. He claimed to experience rare symptoms that actual psychotic patients almost never report. He described symptoms in textbook language that suggested he de-researched what crazy was supposed to look like. This is called symptom over-endorsement. When someone doesn't understand that real mental illness is inconsistent and messy, so they check every symptom box thinking more symptoms equals more believable. Real psychological disorders don't present like a textbook checklist. They're idiosyncratic, fluctuating, and often contradictory. Fake disorders look suspiciously perfect. He was also given the SIRS structured interview of reported symptoms, which is even more sophisticated. It includes questions about absurd symptoms that sound crazy to lay people, but that actual psychotic patients rarely experience. Questions like, do you ever feel like your body is made of glass? Or have you ever believed you could control the weather with your thoughts? Malingerers often answer yes to these, thinking they sound appropriately psychotic. Genuine psychotic patients usually answer no because even psychosis tends to follow certain patterns, and these specific delusions are extremely rare. Cruz endorsed multiple absurd symptoms. He was trying too hard to appear insane, and it backfired. Forensic psychologists don't just rely on interviews and tests, they gather collateral information, evidence from outside sources about the defendant's behavior and mental state before the crime. They interviewed Cruz's family, friends, teachers, and former classmates. They reviewed his school records, social media posts, text messages, browser history, and journal entries. What they found was damning. Cruz had been planning this attack for months, possibly years. He researched school shooters online. He practiced shooting at gun ranges. He posted about his intentions on social media. He made calculated decisions about weapons, timing, and target selection. This is premeditation, not psychosis. This is planning, not delusion. There was zero evidence of psychotic symptoms in his entire documented history before the crime. No prior psychiatric hospitalizations for psychosis. No family members reporting hallucinations or delusions. No teachers witnessing bizarre behavior consistent with psychotic breaks. No previous mentions of demons anywhere in his communications. If Cruz had genuinely been experiencing command hallucinations, telling him to commit mass murder, there would have been signs of psychological dysfunction throughout his life leading up to the crime. But there weren't. The demon voice appeared fully formed, perfectly timed, only after arrest. That's not mental illness, that's legal strategy. Forensic psychologists look at something called functional capacity, the defendant's ability to plan, execute, and understand their actions. The Parkland shooting required extensive functional capacity. Acquiring weapons legally requires background check, proper documentation. Planning the attack requires executive function, future thinking. Timing the arrival for maximum casualties requires understanding of school schedules. Using the fire alarm strategically requires problem solving. Shooting accurately while moving through the building requires motor control and spatial awareness. Disposing of the weapon to avoid being caught with it requires understanding of consequences. Blending in with fleeing students requires social awareness and strategic thinking. Successfully navigating to public places after the shooting requires orientation and goal-directed behavior. Every single one of these actions requires intact cognitive function. Someone in the grip of a genuine psychotic episode, significant enough to drive them to mass murder, would not be capable of this level of planning and execution. Dr. Charles Scott, one of the forensic psychiatrists who evaluated Cruz, testified that Cruz understood the nature and consequences of his actions, could distinguish right from wrong, and demonstrated full capacity to plan and execute the attack. His demon voice was a deliberate attempt to fabricate insanity, not a manifestation of genuine mental illness. In October 2022, after a lengthy trial, the jury rejected Cruz's insanity defense. They found him guilty of 17 counts of first-degree murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. During the penalty phase, the defense argued that Cruz's history of mental illness, developmental disabilities, and childhood trauma should spare him from the death penalty. But they had already lost the insanity argument. The jury determined Cruz knew exactly what he was doing. The jury was split on the death penalty. Florida law requires a unanimous jury decision for death sentences. Because 3 jurors voted for life, Cruz was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He's currently serving 17 consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 340 years. He will never be released. The demon voice defense didn't work. The forensic psychology caught the performance. And 17 families got at least the justice of knowing that Cruz could unlie his way out of responsibility for what he did. So what have we learned? Faking mental illness in criminal cases is extraordinarily difficult. The performance tells, the convenient timing, the theatrical presentation, the improved symptoms over time. The slip-ups when answering factual questions all expose the deception. Nikolas Cruz's demon voice didn't fool the detectives, it didn't fool the forensic psychologists, and it didn't fool the jury. Because forensic psychology has evolved specifically to detect these attempts, using standardized tests, collateral evidence, functional capacity analysis, and decades of research on genuine versus performed psychosis. Real mental illness is tragic, it's devastating, and it does, in rare cases, drive people to commit crimes they wouldn't otherwise commit. Those individuals deserve proper psychiatric care and treatment, not punishment. But the law requires proving genuine psychosis, not performing it. But there's more to this story, because we haven't talked about the other defendants whose insanity defenses actually worked. What separates genuine psychosis from malingering in the most ambiguous cases? What are the cases where forensic psychologists said this person really was insane? And what happens to those defendants? Where do they go? And do they ever get released? That's exactly what we're covering in the next video. The insanity defenses that succeeded the cases where the demons were real, and the shocking truth about forensic psychiatric hospitals for the criminally insane. If you want to understand both sides of the insanity defense, the fakers and the genuine cases, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss it. Drop a comment telling me what you think about Cruz's demon voice performance. Did any moment surprise you? I read every single comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.